All right. Hello, everyone. Happy. What is it? Wednesday. Wednesday already. It's hard to keep track in these strange and uncertain times. First of all, a big shout out to our many of our students who are joining us today, who are taking classes with us. Nice to see you on this Facebook Live broadcast. Before we get started with today's show, which is all about port wine, I did want to make a couple of exciting announcements. One is we have just launched two new certifications if you're interested in spirits, and that is our bourbon, certified bourbon professional and certified whiskey professional. And we're proud to be working with the Council of Whiskey Masters on offering those two entry level certifications. And you can find those on our website. More to come from that as well. And then another exciting announcement. I know many of you are taking already our WSET Level 2 or maybe Level 3, and you're aware of the wine kits that are included with the online class. Well, we're excited to announce that we'll be including wine kits with the WSET Level 1 course as well, starting in August. So that's a great new development for us. So that means now all three levels of WSET have wines included in the online class, with live Zoom tasting sessions as well. And then, of course, for level 1 and level 2, the exams are available online. So no matter where you are, you have now access to great material, great wines, and the exam online. So very proud to be able to make that announcement about level 1. And then lastly, a little teaser, and I'll be a little vague, but we'll be launching a membership option for our website coming here in the next few weeks. More information about that. Well, enough about the announcements. Let's bring on Monica Vescovi onto screen. And the reason you're here today is to learn about port wine. Monica, here you are live from my home office to your home office. Welcome.
Welcome. Today I'm going to take you on a trip from my home office, but this time to port. This is one of the most amazing places in the world and most amazing wine regions, the Dover Valley. The picture that you have right in front of you, I have taken that with my phone camera. There is no image interruption here. That's how it looks like. It's amazing. It's stunning. And most of all, it is a wine region, the Dover Valley, that produces one of the most beautiful wines. So it used since 1756. This is the oldest demarcated region in the world. So this is a place that was actually a region that started all of the regional acknowledgement around the world. This is a very important historically place, therefore. So we have a Mediterranean climate. However, we have severe winters up to -5 degrees Celsius and very hot summers with over 45 degrees on the other hand. So we are achieving an extremely ripe fruit, and we're producing a large amount of the black grapes due to those climatic conditions. So when we look into the soils, it's schistous with a bit of graning, but we have schist soils on slopes that are allowing us to produce low yields. Altitudes vary from 80 to 800 meters. So a very important thing that we're looking at the diurnal change in temperature between the day and night. We're looking for some beautiful acidity in those wines. And we have a steep slopes that require terracing. You do see that behind that the oak leaves that I keep in my hand. You see those terraces. They're really time consuming, and they are quite costly when it comes to preparing the slopes for the wine production for the planting of the vines. So local grape varieties, Touriga Nacional, Tintero Rich, Touriga Franca, and many others. I will discuss them in just a moment. The Douro Valley on its own, it's divided into 3 sub-regions. So we have a Douro Superior, which is an upper Douro, and then we have a Cima Corgo, where we produce most of we produce port and the high quality wines, and the Bajo Corgo in the west. Bajo Corgo is the wettest, with about 900 millimeters of rain per year. And the Cima Corgo, on the other hand, is warmer and drier, with only 700 millimeters of rain. The driest and hottest and quite arid is Douro Superior, with 140 millimeters of rain a year. So we have a Douro River with its tributaries that is allowing for the particular mesoclimate that helps the wine production and viticulture in the region. Those pictures that you see here were actually taken in the vineyards, in the Grants vineyards, and if you take a look at the schist, the slopes are covered with the schist, and the schist splits, so the roots can penetrate through the schistous soil and look for the water and nutrients. Well, needless to say, it is a very difficult area to cultivate. As Hugh Johnson described it in the World Atlas of Wine, the Douro, of all the places where men have planted vineyards, is the most improbable. To begin with, there was not even soil, only 60% slope of schist and granite, flaking and unstable, baked in 40 degrees sun. It was a land of utter desolation. So the producers, the winemakers, they made amazing development, actually planting those slopes that were almost impossible to plant, and making wine. So the gradients, so you see in many of the pictures that it are about 30%, which is really, really high. And different kind of terracings. Once you're preparing for your level 3, you will be actually studying about different terracing, because the way I prepared this presentation today, you can apply it to both level 2 and level 3. But this is actually the information that you would be looking for in level 3, three different styles of terracing that are used today in the viticulture, in the vineyard management in the Douro. So we have a shocalcus, short stone walls. So you have a terrace and a stone wall. Those are actually hard to maintain, and they're quite costly. Those are the most traditional ones, the oldest ones. The cost really comes from repairing the walls, and the danger is also that if the wall will fall, if we're on a steep slope, then we may have some damage when it comes to the vineyard as well. Then we have a patamares, which we have a road access built into the slope, and those are actually they're being redone today to be even more mechanization friendly, but those are found to be very effective today. And Vinha Alto, which is a vertical planting, you see it on the left hand side on the picture, but that can only be done and used on the slopes that don't have that high of an inclination. So the grape varieties used, the main grape variety is Touriga Nacional. This is a classic port grape variety. It's very low yielding, and its classic aroma is this floral aroma of some rose and orange blossom. It produces great wines on its own, but it's a classic blending grape variety for port production with a deep color, high tannin contents, and tends to retain acidity well, which is very important when it comes to the port production, because we're producing concentrated sweet wines with a lot of ripeness. So the acidity is very important here to have balance in the wine. So, needless to say, Touriga Nacional contributes great character to the blend. Then we have Tinta Roriz, you may know it as a Tempranillo in Spain, for example. That brings high sugar content, and as you already know, sugar is a potential alcohol as well. The flavor profile here is more the black fruit, black cherry, and red plum. It is aromatic. It gives aromatic wines with some notes of tobacco and dark cherry. So then we have a Touriga Franca, one of the most widely planted grape varieties in Douro Valley, and tends to retain acidity well, which again, this is a very important factor in those hotter climatic conditions. And medium body, medium alcohol wines we're going to achieve with red and black fruits with aromas of violets. And so right now, this is a very important grape variety. Why? Because has high acidity, and it's more and more often planted, it's more and more often blended just for that acidity to bring the freshness of the wine. So from here, you had an overview of Douro Valley and an overview of the climatic conditions. Let's dive into the winemaking. Let's dive into the production. You probably have seen this picture a number of times when you have a whole team that is in Lagares, inside of Lagar. And what is Lagar? Let's start with that. It's a granite vat. It's a granite vat, fairly shallow, where the fermentation will take place. So what is happening? Grapes are delivered into the lagar, and they are foot trotted traditionally. There are some other ways I will show, so I will talk about it in just a moment. But traditionally, they were hand trotted. Why? Well, not hand, foot trotted, of course. But what happens here? The human foot, it's extremely gentle. So while it's breaking the skin, allowing for quick extractions of tannins and the color, it also does not break the pips that are, so the seeds that are in the berry, and it allows for that quick extraction that we need here at this stage. So the fermentation at this point will take place for only up to 2 days, so for up to 48 hours before we're going to add aguardiente. Aguardiente, it's a grape spirit. It's a grape. It's brandy. The quality of it, it's very important as well. Many top producers imports today will be reaching out and are reaching out to the cognac, for example, for a high quality brandy, because we're looking at wines that can age for decades, especially when we talk about vintage ports. So because of that, we also want to make sure that with having the great quality grapes that are coming from great parcels, we're also having great spirit that goes into the wine that will be aging as well. And quality of that spirit and ability to age for that spirit is also important. So grape brandy will be stopping the alcoholic fermentation after those 2 days, preserving the grape natural sugar. So you have natural sweetness in the wine. So the fortification happens when we reach about 5 to 9% of the alcohol, and the grape spirit has 77% of alcohol by volume. So essentially, we're going to produce a sweet style of wine with 19 to 22% of alcohol by volume, which in terms of systematic approach to tasting, this means that this is high alcohol. And at this point, I want you to really focus if you study for level 2 or level 3, because I know this is is sometimes challenging for students, that the alcohol levels for fortified wines are different than alcohol level for still wines. So, for example, low alcohol for fortified wines, it's between 15 and 16.4% alcohol, where medium is 16.5 to 18.4, and then high alcohol is 18.5 and above. So do keep that in mind. Those are the things that can be coming up on your multiple choice. If you're in level 3, you may have need to write about it as well in your tasting note, or recognize it in your tasting note for level 3. Later on today, I'm going to walk you through level 3 tasting note, and at the end, I'm going to ask you to actually let me know, what wine am I tasting? So in about 5 to 8 minutes, I'm going to give you a tasting note on one of the ports I'm going to taste today. So prepare yourself and let me know at the end. So we can use over 100 grape varieties for production of port, and the wines will be blended. Fermentation is in higher level of the temperature, 28 to 32 degrees Celsius. And as I told you before, it's a rapid fermentation. We have 2 days in traditional lagers or stainless steel, depending on the style of wine we're making. Indigenous yeast is often used for fermentation, but the more economical value wines will be using culture yeast for the fermentation process. And the sweetnesses will be usually when we start the fermentation, it's about 80 to 100 grams per liter of sugar. So in the winemaking, we have several ways we can approach it. So traditionally, food threading in lagarish, but we can use a mechanization as well. So on the bottom to the right, you'll see the traditional lagar. This is in Quinta de Naval. Actually, I was there at the moment when they were past the harvest. So you see an empty lagar, and we also have a robotic lagar. So robotic lagar, you'll see that on the bottom will imitate the work of human foot. So it actually allows for that threading of the grapes mechanically. You just set a computer on it, so you don't you're working with the cost of the production. Now, of course, initially you have to invest in the robotic lagar, but then later on, every year you're hiring less people to do the job. And you have to know, and it is an important part when we're discussing wine production, to think or include in your in the winemaking process the cost. You have to think of the cost of the winemaking. You have to think of the cost of the vineyard management, which is high in the valley with those steep slopes, and in most cases lack of ability to actually use mechanization. So you have to use manpower, which manpower will be one of the highest costs in the winery. So we are using pumping overs for quick extraction during the winemaking process. And for the more economical wines, we will use auto vinifiers that will pump the wine fairly quickly, so we get that quick extraction as well. So then we move to maturation and blending, and this is a key for differentiation of the styles of port wines that we will be talking about in just a moment. So you see, we can use the stainless steel, we can use large oak vats, or we can use the classic classic barrel for the maturation of the port. And let's move on to port styles, because very often at your examination at level 2 and level 3, you are being asked about port styles. So let me break this down for you. So we have two major styles, the ruby style and the tawny style. So once you're starting your preparation for exam, start with the vision of those two styles. So let's look at the bottom first, and let's look at the ruby and tawny. You'll see on the side that it says blend of harvest. What does it mean? Those wines will be blended, whereas some of the other wines at the top of the category are coming from single harvest, so from a single vintage, and those will be vintage port, LBV, and Colheita. Now, within ruby and tawny style, let's focus first on ruby. Ruby will be the youngest style that will age for 2 to 3 years and released to the market. Ruby will come from, is associated with the ruby color. So when we're going to associate the color of the wine, the appearance of the wine, we'll discuss the ruby color, and that should give you an idea which category you are at. So your start when you're blind tasting your port wine, you're starting with the color to give you an idea of which category you are entering. Then reserve ruby will be aged for just a little longer, of 3 to 4 years. Often will come the grapes will come from higher quality parcels. And then we're moving to LBV. LBV is one of the most popular styles sold. What does it mean? It's a late bottle vintage. What is the style? Actually, within the LBV, we have two different styles. So we can have an LBV, which is both styles come from single vintage. However, if LBV is fine and filtered, it is ready to be drunk on bottling, and it's actually not developing. So it's sort of a step up from reserve ruby, but it's like reserve ruby. Well, if you have an unfiltered LBV, it will keep developing in the bottle, and it will more resemble the vintage port instead of a ruby reserva. So, and the vintage port is the one that is the most sought after. It's only made in the best years. The vintage can be claimed after the second year. So the second year after the vintage, wine spends 2 to 3 years in a smaller barrel before it will be transferred into the bottle and age, and it will be aged for the long period of time in a bottle and will throw sediment. So we should be looking at least 10 years of bottle aging before we open the bottle. It will throw the heavy sediment. You will need to decant it as well. So this is another important thing to understand about this style. And if you want to open a vintage port that's really young, and you don't have the time or the means to keep it, it is very often better to step down to LBV. Then we go to tawny styles, and within the tawny styles, you will actually look into the wines that have been aged in the barrels for extended period of time, and hence they get the tawny color that comes from the oxidation, comes from aging oxidatively. So the tawny, the basic tawny will be aged from 3 to 5 years. Then we have the tawnies with an indication of age 10, 20, 30, and 40 years. And it is a combination of two things. So it will resemble a blend of this is a blend of several vintages, but it will actually have to remain similar to the style of a wine that would that is recognized as 10, 20, 30, and 40, instead of being the precise blend to give us an average age of the wine. So do keep that in mind. So there is a panel of tasters that will be tasting the wines and will be saying, yes, this is a style of 10, 20, 30, or 40 years old tawny. One of the most popular tawnies that are sold in the market today is the 20 years old tawny. Then we are looking into the Reserva tawny, and the last one is the Collietta, which is a vintage tawny. So it's the tawny that comes from the single harvest. The rest of the tawnies are blended. So going from here, just to take you a little further to the tasting, I actually have discussed most of those already. So let's take a look at how to sell the port. You know, in today's world, we drink a little less of the sweet wines, or a lot less, really. It's not only a little, but we can find great ways to introduce the category to your guests if you're working in a restaurant. How do we do that? It is really up to a sommelier to talk about the port, you know, because after a dinner, during the dinner, this is not the first thing that comes to your guest's mind. So what can we do? Well, there are a few ways. Well, if you want to start with the port, you can use it in cocktails, for example. This is a very popular way today of using port just as an aperitif to bring it in. In some culture, it is an aperitif. You can use a chilled ruby port as an aperitif as well. So then moving from here, it is a great pairing for cheeses. It is a fantastic pairing for desserts as well, or just after dinner drink on its own. Can you match ports with the main courses? Yes, you can. And if you're a sommelier and progressive sommelier and you want to bring in a really memorable experience for your guests, please do that. Those are the sometimes when you are able to marry the flavors of food and wine and actually show your guests that you can take them from the comfort zone. In many ways, you can find people just falling in love again with ports. But there's another a very good way of presenting port is a tappet hen. You see that bottle to the left. Tappet hen is 225 liters. It's a larger format bottle. And a great way to serve it as a sommelier on the floor, you go out with the large bottle to one of the tables, and once the floor sees that, sort of in a sense a show of the presentation, many guests will also follow, having at the same time an amazing experience and something that they will keep in mind for a very long time. Another very good thing about the many port styles is that you don't have to, once you store it properly, you don't have to use it right away. You have a longer time of the storage, even when it comes to open bottles. So this is also a good way to be able to offer those wines by the glass. But let's move to the systematic approach to tasting, and let's move to the tasting at the level 3. So we're looking at the appearance. What I have in my glass, I will show you a bottle right after you give me some of the answers. But let's start with the appearance. This is a deep ruby in color, so that should give you the first idea of which category we're looking at. Then when I get to the nose, the aromas are pronounced with primary, secondary, and tertiary aromas, and it's intense and concentrated notes of the black fruit, blackberry, black cherry, subtle notes of licorice. Then with secondary, we have toast, cloves, and tertiary, burnt chocolate, forest flower, dried leaves. It is developing at this point, and when it comes to palate, it is a sweet wine with the medium plus acidity and tannins, high alcohol, full body, pronounced intensity of flavors. And again, we're seeing primary, secondary, and tertiary flavors with primary being mainly in black fruit with black cherry, black currant, black plum, with some of the licorice. There's a bit of sweet spiciness to it. We have the closed toast and nutmeg for secondary, and again the dried cherry, a bit of dried cranberry, prune, beautiful wine with the medium plus finish. And quality. When we get to quality, this is a very good quality. So there's a balance between the high alcohol and intensity of fruit. We have those pronounced aromas of fresh and dry fruit, the medium plus length, and the pronounced intensity. It falls slightly short on the complexity. We're leaving me with very good here. And level of readiness for drinking and potential for wine aging. This wine is, you can drink it now, but has no potential for aging. So now I'm going to ask you to take for the next 30 seconds to put in your answer. What style of port wine am I having in my glass? Well, what is it? And we'll actually in just a moment we'll reveal the answer.
Okay, we have some guesses coming in. Sandra Torres here says ruby wine.
All right.
See if we can get a couple of other guesses of the style that Monica has just described here in our tasting note with quite a bit of passion. So let's see what if we can get a couple of other thoughts on what you think this could be. Okay. Right. Well, let's go with Ruby. We have no takers on guessing it.
In the Ruby category, you're right. But this is a LBV. This is the late bottle vintage from 2013 from Dows. So as you see seen in the notes, the appearance was leading you to the Ruby category, and the that hinder on the lack of that high of the concentration should also, if you were thinking at one point that this could be, okay, where are we? Are we in the ruby category, or are we in a vintage category? So the vintage port will have a great concentration, would have a long finish, and would really have a high tannins. The tannins is a very extremely vibrant in the vintage port. Well, if we were talking about ruby style, a basic ruby will be lighter in style, will have lighter tannins, will have lower concentration of aromas and flavors as well. Okay, so thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the course. Please prepare, study for your WSET courses or other courses that you might be taking. Keep on tasting, keep on asking questions, keep on going with your education, and find great people that are behind the wines. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Monica. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Thanks for your time. We ran a little bit over, but I think it was all great material. It's always great to see all of you passionate wine geeks up there soaking up some more knowledge. So stay tuned. We will be back on Monday with trivia, and we'll be back next Wednesday with another theory and tasting section. Great to see all of you. In the meantime, drink well, stay safe, and be kind. Thanks for joining us. Cheers.